présenter tout cela d'ici quelques instants. Le temps pour les pilotes de se mettre en formation et de monter en piste. Petite pause.
On a beautiful afternoon at Spa-Francorchamps circuit, we are about to get underway for the second time today for the Ligier European Series. It'll be an hour-long race for JS P4s and JS2 Rs, a combination of the mini prototype cars and the GT-derived machines. And a very interesting race earlier on today, affected really by tricky track conditions, although no doubt about it, the slick was the way to go. And quite clearly, even better now, drier track conditions greet the cars as they head back out onto the racetrack. There was a separate qualifying session for this race, and if you did qualifying 1, then you had to make sure your other driver did qualifying 2, and whoever took part in qualifying 2 must start this race. So we will guarantee to get different starting drivers in all of the cars, unless, of course, you've elected to tackle it with just the single driver. And that is the case for Minea Stefan, who could potentially seal this year's Ligier European Series in this race. My name's Johnny Palmer. I'm joined by Graham Goodwin. Now, I have it on good authority, i.e. from Minea Stefan, that...
That's pretty good authority.
Yeah, certainly a second place will seal the championship. I think he can even drop as far as 3rd, and it doesn't matter about anybody else where they finish. A 3rd place will do it. I will check that on the points. Let's just quickly run through the grid, and then you can say a few lines. Minea Stefan in the 48 car for Team Virage, race winner earlier on, starts alongside Ian Aguilera, the young teenager from Mexico. It's Ronnie Valori for HB Racing by Monza Garage alongside Anthony Onara for Pegasus Racing. Jacopo Mazza and Kevin Madsen for LR Motorsport and Team Virage come next. Then the Monza Garage car, hopefully repaired for Chuting Chu. That car out of the race earlier on at Blanchimont. Bernardo Pinheiro starting from 8th place. Then 3 JS2Rs, Julien Lemoine, who is on the cusp of winning that title for ANS Motorsport alongside Jacques Nugelet. Simon Butler starts the RLRM Sport Car number 10 ahead of Louis Rossi in the JS P4 for Le Dussard. It's Christophe Weber and Giacomo Polini who will be 4th and 5th in the JS2Rs. And finally, Davide Amaduzzi, new to the championship for smart driving.
There is one of the Virage cars looking to get back to its grid position. Fallen way back in it. Would say this about Minea Stefan. He looked dominant this morning. Looked confident. There was no sign of any nerves about this championship. The conditions, as we saw, Johnny, were tricky. There'll be... Oh, there's a spin, as I say that. There's a spin as the cars are on their formation lap. That is the 75 car. Now, that will be... That's not Aito Caragiuli this time, is it? It's Ian Aguilera for 2nd place on this grid. Now, he will do well. I'm not sure he can take his position back at this point on the lap. So what happens here? See,
it was earlier on in the lap, was it not? I don't think it was at Blanchimont corner. It was at Le Fagna or possibly the exit of Pouhon where the spin happened for Ian Aguilera. There we go, Pouhon it was. And that car due to start from the front row alongside Minea Stefan, and he has rotated the car. Well, it was a slight off for Ian Aguilera in qualifying yesterday that did the damage to the 75, and they were up pretty late last night, into the evening certainly, trying to find the relevant spares at RLRM Sport and repairing the odd bit here and there that they could then refit onto the car. That's why it's carrying the all-carbon nose on number 75. And we are beyond the point now where the grid formation has begun and is almost complete. So Aguilera is going to have to start stone last, Graham.
Absolutely right. That's a mistake with serious consequences for him and the prospects for this race. I think he was possibly just being a little bit too aggressive to try to get the heat into the tyres here. Lock up here, by the way, for the number 17 car, Anthony Nara, a car that was just off the pace.
Yes.
In that race this morning. Whether or not Minea Stefan will find a hotter level of competition, but it's just got a little bit easier, hasn't it, for him, with the issue there for the RLR car. Safety car lights are off, and now it will be for Minea Stefan to control his own destiny, at least for this portion of his afternoon. Bright sunshine now here. It has its own problems with the Spa-Francorchamps circuit. We've still, as we saw, got some pretty significant wet patches. The drivers will be aware of that. They'll have a chance to look at where things are. High white cloud now and blue skies beyond. Still pretty cool here. 21 degrees on the track, 13 degrees in the air, as we're about to get this race underway, Johnny Palmer.
So the second part of Heat 5 of this year's Ligier European Series gets underway at Spa-Francorchamps now. And of course, Anthony Nara needing to be careful not to be fully alongside Miner Stefan. He had to treat that as if it was a car in front of him. And it is very, very nip and tuck into the first corner. Not for Miner Stefan, but for everybody else. Ronnie Valori gets the jump ahead of Jacopo Mazza in the orange and dark blue of LR Motorsport. The second of the Monza Garage cars for Chuting Shu, running in fourth position now, ahead of Anthony Nara, who was caught really between a rock and a hard place. He didn't want to go too hard too quickly, even though there was a gap there teasing him in, and he slipped back a couple of positions. In fact, that was a car badly damaged in the earlier race. Choosing to still warm the tyres up down the Kemmel Straight, or up the Kemmel Straight, is the race leader Miner Stefan. That's because Ronnie Valori is at a reasonably safe distance, and it's the two Italians in the Romanian's wake that are duking it out for second and third. Then a gap back to Bernardo Pinheiro in the second of the Virage cars.
Absolutely, just lovely to see what has happened with that 75 car, the RLR Sport in Aguilera. Has made his way by all bar one. JS2 R's up the inside, goes the 17 car, can't make it work there, and I think quite wisely ducked out of the move on the 11 of Chuting Chu, who does at least get to race after the issues this morning for Ray Yu Wang. Around they come. Still, that's a weekly wet patch there, as this time the move is done. Through goes Anthony Nara into fifth position, past the Taiwanese driver. Tucked in behind them, Kevin Madsen, also looking to make the move, does so. Torrid moment or two for the number 11 car of Monza Garage.
So Jacopo Mazza racing with Ronnie Valori. I called them both Italians, I must correct that. Jacopo Mazza from Lugano, so just over the border into Switzerland, although Italian speaking, and therefore very easy to communicate with his mechanics. The Luca Riccitelli team, LR Motorsport. And Jacopo Mazza will have teammate Simone Riccitelli, son of, for the second stint after Simone started the race a little earlier on today. But Anthony Nara under a lot of pressure here from Bernardo Pinheiro. So the 17 car getting ahead of, now behind Pinheiro and battling with Kevin Madsen in the third of the Team Virage cars. So Virage currently first, fourth and sixth. But crucially for Kevin Madsen and his teammate Lance Fenton, they are leading again the AM category and on course for taking victory. In fact, I mentioned earlier on all they needed to do was pick up some points in the AM category earlier today to ensure that was going back to the States.
Aguilera up the inside of the number 5 car, making progress from that. Something of a disaster on the opening lap. Side by side as they come down to Rouge, up towards Radion now. Side by side, there looks might well have been contact there with the 48 car, and he loses the lead. The 04 car. It looks like there might be damage at the front of the 04. I think there is front to rear contact. There is.
Go. That's where it happened. So front left of Valori's car as Kevin Madsen now gets up alongside Anthony Nara and will get that place. Tidy little overtake at the end of the Kemmel Straight and into Le Com corner. So that will give Kevin Madsen fifth place. As this great gaggle of cars, 4 of them, all squealer tyres in the foreground though. Now, was that Nara, was that Madsen? It was neither of them. It was the 86, in fact, of the Le Dusab and Jacques Nicolet. So yellow flags are big off, actually.
Wasn't it just? He was lucky still at the barriers there.
Entering La Com backwards. You never want to hear those words put together, but amazingly, Jacques Nicolet got away with it.
That will be a tale over a glass of wine later. You'll want to see that one again.
Blimey, threading the eye of the needle through the gravel trap. Amazing he didn't hit anybody then as he rejoined.
Wide for the number 11 car. That's going to give the 75 a chance to get up the inside. He doesn't need a second opportunity and will take that position. So Aguilera makes up a further position into 7th place now.
I'm getting the impression from the body language of the car, certainly, that the 16-year-old Mexican is a tad frustrated with his weekend so far. How much gravel do you want, though, on the racetrack at Le Com corner? And that's a big question now for the race officials, for those running this race safely. Is it a good idea to stay green? for the rest of the race, certainly, or do we need a safety car now to clear at least the majority of those stones off the racing line?
Yeah, the issue is with where that is as well. It's a big braking zone, isn't it? It's a huge braking zone. If cars are going to get problems there, it can be slippy with gravel down as well. There's all sorts of dust that comes with it.
True.
Be a stony glare from race control about that.
Well, as soon as the tyres are no longer in contact with the road, because they're slicks as well, there is a tread depth on them as
Absolutely.
such, but it's a warm tyre that will just pick up those stones, and then you're going to potentially get one weaving its way into the tyre itself, or certainly causing a vibration. So there'll be flags being waved by the marshals, the red and yellow stripe flags, to show that something has changed, the track surface has changed. And this problem for the 48 for Miner Stefan is certainly hampering his progress. I mean, it'd be gulping in air because of that wayward bodywork on the rear right. Although, having said that, Jacopo Mazza goes a bit deep into Le Mans, maybe as a result of the gravel down.
I think it was. I mean, he seemed to just drift wide there. Just smoke from the rear as well. I think that bodywork is dragging on the tyre up the inside of the 11, the 5 there, too, struggling over that gravel. Just an uncertainty about whether or not the braking points in those conditions are the right ones now.
Exactly.
But yeah, it looks to me as if that 48 car could have a bigger problem. There's definitely smoke. It looks to me as if that bodywork is dragging on a tyre somewhere.
So Davide Amaduzzi was involved in the side-by-side action at Le Mans a couple of seconds ago in the smart driving car, number 5. And also the 50 of Louis Rossi for Le Douce. There's LR Motorsports, Jacopo Mazza ahead of Miner Stefan. But yeah, tyre rub could well be a problem here as well. He's going to have to wait a long time to the pit lane window being open. That doesn't open for another 20 minutes.
Crucially as well, that does drop Miner Stefan from a championship winning position at this stage of the race. I think you said second would be enough. He's now down to third.
Yeah, I'll have to check the points because, of course, it's also dependent on where his nearest championship rivals are. And at the moment, Bernardo Pinheiro is behind him, so I still think that's enough. But he will have to stay in front of the Pinheiro and George King combination.
Pinheiro, though, is catching him. There he is, next car back. So all of a sudden, out of nothing, there's excitement, there's drama, and it's not the sort of drama that the championship leader was hoping for or indeed expecting. He is being closed down rapidly by Pinheiro now.
So over the line they go, and the LR Motorsport car, Jacopo Mazza, ahead of Miner Stefan, but Miner Stefan in a slightly ailing car. The 50 of Louis Rossi in touch with Chu Ting Shu in the Monza garage car. So that's the battle for 9th and 10th. Meanwhile, Jacopo Polini is leading in JS2 R for LR Motorsport. So the Prima Grey number 43 out front of Julien Lemoine. That's a Pro-Am driver lineup ahead of the AM leader.
That's his debut weekend, I think, in the series as well for Polini. So that's excellent stuff from another debuting Italian. LR Motorsports 43 car. That was a troubled race 1 this morning. A couple of laps down, there it is, the Prima Grey and, what do we call that, orange? Dayglow orange?
Close enough.
Works for me.
It's certainly a nice paint scheme for the LR Motorsport crew, who've decided to go with 3 very different liveries for their cars.
Recovering Jacques Nicolet, I think, on Christophe Weber, it is. And up the inside goes Jacques, the man behind the revival of this Ligier brand, purchased by Onroc Automotive, as was, from Guy Ligier, no longer with us sadly. Legendary name in motorsport, up to and including glories in Formula 1 and at Le Mans.
Yeah. So back to the championship, Miner Stefan in front of the Pinheiro and King combination. So they're in the number 60 car. And then reasonably close, Simone Riccitelli and Jacopo Mazza. So just need to work out whether Mazza, currently in second place, is scoring enough points, but that'll only be 3 more, 18 versus 15 for Miner Stefan. The big question mark is whether that damage on the 48 car is going to get worse over the next 50 minutes, and whether the team can maybe do a quick fix to prevent the car from losing more time. In the current formation, I still reckon third is good enough because he's crucially ahead of the sister Virage car of Bernardo Pinheiro.
It does depend on the way that race control calls that incident as well, doesn't it? It was an impact from the rear, but I'm not sure it's quite that clear-cut, is the straight answer. If you had to ask me right now to make a call, I'd say the blame went with the number 4 car. But he was catching the number 48 car. He was catching quite quickly.
Yeah. And
that sort of worries me in that situation.
Well, it's about whether Minnaert deviated from the straight line down the Kemmel Straight and was therefore blocking Ronnie Valori. I'd have to see it again to be sure. There wasn't anything screamingly obvious that Minnaert Stefan was doing wrong there. But race control are looking at it, and it's currently under investigation, has been for the last 6 or so minutes. Now to the high line goes Davide Amaduzzi on Anthony Nara, and the Nara Pegasus racing car, when it was in the hands of Dimitri Engelbert, was struggling, but that was with 2 bits of damage. It looks like both have been repaired now. But again, the tail of the 17 car had been damaged early on in race 1 and was perhaps hampering the progress of Dimitri Engelbert. He then got a significant shove from the right from Simone Riccitelli here at Bruxelles corner, which would spin the number 17 car and heavily delay it.
This is in Aguilera now trying to deal with Kevin Madsen, and this is for 5th place. He wants to be involved in this battle at the front of this race. It's significantly closer than this morning's race, and with those issues from Minnaert Stefan, who's to say that couldn't be a realistic target. Bernardo Pinheiro is the next car ahead of this pair, and Pinheiro is catching Stefan, no doubt about it.
Ian Aguilera thinking about a move around the outside of Kevin Madsen, then to the inside. That didn't quite come off, but Aguilera does seem to be quicker than the Southern Californian at the moment, but he's got to find a way by, and Madsen quite obviously is not going to make that easy for him. Heading through curve Paul Frere now, and on towards the real quick left-hander at Blanchimont. The battle for 5th place well alight, but unfortunately then to the cars in front of these, they are losing a bit of time. Meanwhile, another incident, that's the same incident, isn't it? Turn 4 exit, which will have been...
no further action. They've seen that as a racing incident. The impact between the current race leader, as Aguilera goes to the outside through the bus stop. There's close to his... Was there contact? I'm not sure there was. It was very close, so there wasn't. He does make the pass. Aggressive move to the outside into the first element of the bus stop there, and he emerges from all that, Johnny, in 5th place and tries to hair off now in pursuit of the number 60 car ahead.
Kevin Madsen had a look at the inside, maybe thinking, well, if I'm going to pounce back again, I need to do it as early as possible. I think that chance has gone, though, now, with Ian Aguilera, as you say, rocketing off out of La Source corner. So it's the outside line, the less traditional approach to the chicane at the end of the lap. And I don't think there was contact there, but there might have been secondary contact. It was side to side, though, so won't have done too much damage. It was the merest of love taps, and they got away with it.
Really good move from the Orlan man. Really good move. Ronnie Valori then, now confirmed there will be no afters from race control for that incident that damaged the front of his car, and critically the rear of Minnaert Stefan's number 48 Team Virage car. The two clashed on the Kemmel Straight. He is now powering away 4 seconds to the good. This is our leader in JS2 R, Johnny.
Here's Giacomo Pollini, as you say, in his first weekend with the Ligier European Series, and certainly a big welcome to this Italian driver who has some GT Italia experience in recent years and enjoying his time out front at this stage. 27 years old, from Brescia, and a former karting champion, actually, only a couple of years ago. So karting well into his early and mid-20s. But GT Italia with Jacopo race last year, with 1 podium along the way, but principally coming from a karting background. I wonder whether there are any transferable skills from a kart to a JS2R. Julien Lemoine, not that far away, I just noticed, though. 2.6 seconds as they headed into Bruxelles corner.
Yeah, look at this pair. This is the battle that's just been settled in the way of Ian Aguilera, but they're 8 seconds back from Bernardo Pinheiro. So that has held up. Aguilera recovery from his formation lap spin. Probably enough to make a bit of a difference here Pinheiro, though, is right with Manair Stefan ahead of this pair.
So Madsen, late on the brakes as he dares. He's still very much in touch with Ian Aguilera as they snake their way through the chicane and tick off another lap. We've got nearly 15 minutes on the clock, so it's going to be another 12 before the pit lane opens, and it will be open for 7 minutes. Now, interestingly, we didn't get a penalty for a car that we thought had gone late into the pits, which was one of the Monza Garage cars.
Yep.
And I wonder whether there's a slight adjustment to the rule there, because we're in that strange situation where actually the pit lane is on the next lap from the one you've just completed. So maybe there's a rule about crossing the line.
Maybe there is, but I think that's odd because it's time and not the lap.
Agreed.
60 car, meanwhile, Bernardo Pinheiro now in the wheel tracks of the team car, 48. The championship leader, the car that can grab the title here this afternoon and most certainly does not want to lose any more places. Pinheiro, though, is one of the championship contenders and will not be playing that game. And Stefan hampered clearly by that damaged bodywork at the rear after contact early in the race with current leader Ronnie Valori. So he is struggling for pace. So, young Portuguese looking, I think, for an opportunity to apply the pressure. And Stefan, meanwhile, will be looking to get through this race with as many points as he possibly can and see whether that's good enough at this stage. He could still take the title today. And as we know from season after season in the Ligier European Series, there's going to be dramas to come. Whether or not that's through racing skill, misfortune, or in the case where it's Spa, let's face it, literally anything can happen here.
True.
It's a bright, shiny day right now. There could be a hurricane coming through, we wouldn't know it.
It's happened many times before. Oh, the virage car's going to go side by side. It's very, very close indeed. So the gap next to nothing between Manair Stefan and Bernardo Pinheiro. I have to say, yesterday evening there was good crack between these two. They clearly get on well. There are a few years between them. Bernardo Pinheiro still in his late teens, whereas the Targa Visto man, there was in third position, now mid-20s, but certainly setting his sights on a season if he can get there in the Michelin Le Mans Cup next year, because that's part of the prize for winning the title in the Ligier European Series. This guy wants to go as high if he can as the World Endurance Championship, though. He clearly stated that to me, Manair Stefan. Just looking back, by the way, on the result from earlier on, that is still provisional, but has Faccioni and Valori in second position. That was the car that we had a question mark over about its pit stop timing.
Trouble, by the way, I'm not quite sure if that's a timing glitch. I've seen the 43 car shown as stopped, but it isn't. Right. Side by side now, and is this where it is going to go? 60 car is going through to take that position up to third.
So that, at the moment, will give the 60 car now 15 points, and this 48 car 12 points. And with Pinheiro now outscoring Manair Stefan, I don't believe this is good enough now, certainly for the championship.
Perhaps a slightly worrying thing about the number 48 car is it's not smoking anymore, which means whatever was being rubbed on that tyre, well, is it the tyre or is it the bodywork that's taken the hit? That's the key. Looking at the body language of the 48 car, look as he puts the car on the load, it's twitching away. Maybe damage to that tyre.
It depends as well how deep the groove might be on the Michelin tyre. Be a different set this from the earlier race, but is that the question of just the bodywork just easing back from the tyre, or as I say, it's just starting to chew through the rear right, which could obviously cause massive problems late on. At least the team will get a look at it at close quarters in about 8 minutes time, or whenever the car pits. Certainly within the next 10 minutes, I would have thought the team can at least check it visually and then send Manair Stefan back on his way.
Well, we've seen racing drivers do remarkable things on damaged tyres. We saw that last time out at Aragon, didn't we? The groove is on one of the edges of this tyre. It's going to have a part to play when the tyre's on the load. If the groove's in the heart, that's a completely different story.
Down the hill towards Podium corner, there is evidence that the 43 car is definitely still moving. Giacomo Polini. So is that a transponder issue then, that is just not triggering the times? 2:33.439 last lap around, which was a PB for car 43. Just trying to work out where it is in the order now.
It looks like it's missed a lap.
Yeah. So Polini drops down to 5th on our timing screen at least, but I'm not sure that's the case in reality, and it's put back to the race lead again, manually I think, by Alcamel, our timekeepers once again this weekend. So Giacomo Polini leading by about 4 seconds over Julien Le Mans. Here's Anthony Nara in the Pegasus racing car, half blue, half white, number 17, with Chu Tung Chao behind for Monza Garage, car number 11.
Watching this battle, Ronnie Valori is just powering away at the front of this race. 39 minutes to go. He's 7 seconds to the good now. And here's Stefan down to 4th, side by side here between Anthony Nara and the number 11 car, the Taiwanese crude car, Monza Garage. Can't make it through there, has to duck out of it, loses a bit of ground in doing so. Gets that tricky braking zone with the, what I think we'll call Nicolay Beach.
I like your style.
Yep.
Yeah, see what you've done there. And there was no need to go safety car. Obviously just the warning flags to say to everybody the track conditions, the track surface has changed. And not exactly greasy, but nevertheless grip could be at a premium whilst the gravel is taken away on the racing line. And it's almost like, I suppose, those first few laps, a little bit like being first on a rally stage, in that you are clearing the road for everyone else behind.
Still trying to push on, Maria Stefan. Doesn't seem to have the grip that he wants out of that car. The other problem, of course, John, is not just the braking and the grip as you come through the gravel, it's the fact these sticky Michelin tyres are going to be picking up a lot of it.
Yeah.
And what that's doing is taking away surface area of rubber. So you're going to have to feel where that grip is if you've run through that much aggregate. So Ronnie Valori leads. What's happened there? He had a poor lap there, and Matza took 2 seconds out of him. So I think Valori may well have had a bit of a moment. Here, this Maria Stefan goes well wide, kicks up the dust.
Pinheiro also
wide.
went wide as well, but not enough, I don't think, to drop tyres into the gravel trap. But almost in sympathy then, Minea Stefan a touch wide, and that might be to do with how much of a tough handle now the car is with that damage on the rear right. Again, it's going to be gulping in air, slowing the car down, and very sideways indeed for Jacopo Matza in the LR Motorsport car. You don't have a small incident at Radion corner, as we've learnt through the years. So he hung on to that supremely well, and the LR Motorsport car remains in second position, as now Minea Stefan has to duck up the inside of the 86 of Jacques Nicolet. And actually, Pinheiro running a touch deep into Bruxelles than I would have expected, and Minea Stefan able to take a few more tenths out of him. So Minea Stefan perhaps now driving around this rear damage, finding a bit more speed. Bernardo Pinheiro not quite as far ahead as he was.
No, he's not dropping him here, is he? If anything, it's going back the other way. Minea Stefan beginning to put pressure on the man ahead. A pair of them are catching step by step Jacopo Matza. A gap just under 4 seconds from the LR Motorsport car back to this pair. And again, that could see the pendulum swing the other way in the championship. It's a warning for both Giacomo Polini, who leads JS2 R, and Ronnie Valori, who leads overall, for abusing track limits. They've got to be very careful here, because that's the last warning they'll get before a penalty. So we've got 36 minutes to go.
If these positions remain the same, the gap's going to be, well, I make it 64 points, even if Pinheiro finishes 1 place ahead of Minea Stefan in third and Stefan finishing in fourth. So the third place that Minea mentioned to me yesterday was if Pinheiro and George King win the race, of course. So at the moment, still okay. There are no extra points for pole positions in this championship. So heading to Portimao, basically a maximum of 50 points still available. Are these two going to go side by side? Not quite. Davide Amaduzzi is ahead of Chuting Xiao for Monza Garage. And good to see the 11 car getting a touch further than it did in the earlier race this morning. So Ray Yu Wang will hopefully get behind the wheel of this car when we head into the pit stops, just 2 minutes away now as they go side by side.
You're not sure unless you get the cut back here. Now I think that's done for the number 5 car. You come powering down, or maybe not, down towards Eau Rouge. Gets the better run out of La Source. Is ahead at this point, and I'm not sure he's got the line for Eau Rouge and up to Radion, but he does do it. He forces the issue. The dark blue car takes to the curbs. It's a puff of dust as it does so, and through goes the Taiwanese driver. That was heady stuff. Still, the two Team Virage cars battling away. Bernardo Pinheiro still trying to work that gap to the second place car, Jacopo Mazza. This is, I guess, the enigma, isn't it, for the number 60 car. Needs to get to the front, but he's bringing his closest rival, or his title rival, with him. So any place he picks up, if that's then matched by Minea Stefan, it's just making the task more difficult.
That's true.
Watch this at the bottom of the hill here. This was a aggressive move from the Taiwanese.
Chun Ting Chu then just marginally ahead.
He was ahead.
So it was within his rights to turn in where he did. He's the silver in that Taiwanese combination. The bronze, Ray Yu Wang, will be taking the car over at some point in the next 8 minutes, there or thereabouts. Minea Stefan getting a very good run on Bernardo Pinheiro this time out of Curve Paul Frere. They're absolutely together, leaving Blanchimont with the car away in the distance, but that shouldn't affect things as they hit the brakes. And Minea's going to go for the move here on the inside of Pinheiro, and Stefan will get that place back again. So they know each other well out of the cars, get on well too, but out on the racetrack, it's a different story potentially. But Minea Stefan forcing the manoeuvre. It was a clean move, don't get me wrong, to get back ahead of the third position.
Taking a look, there is some fluid coming from the back of the 48 car.
Here comes
60 car,
Stefan.
rather, 60 car.
So Minea Stefan getting the late call. I completely agree with you that Bernardo Pinheiro is trailing something.
Quite a lot of fluid.
Yeah, so maybe that has had a say in why those places changed, although it was a really good run for Minea Stefan. The dangerous thing, of course, for the Romanian driver was that he could well have gone off on whatever was being chucked out of the back of the 60 car. Here's Ronnie Valori leading the race in the 0-4 and showing the damage on the front left corner after tagging the back of Minea Stefan earlier in the race.
Here's the move. So
chevron formation from the Team Virage cars, and then later on the brakes it was good car positioning as well. Is there fluid dropping out of the 60 there? Yes, definitely.
That's where I first saw it, and you sort of doubt yourself, looked at the next corner, but there's significant amounts of fluid coming from the rear of that car.
If it's out of the 48, I could understand it, because that's had rear damage, but the 60's had a relatively clean race up until this point, so that is a mystery for me. And question marks as to whether that Virage car 16 up to third, because of the pit stop for Minea Stefan, can do the distance. It'll be George King to take it over just as soon as the 60 car comes in, maybe next time around. RLRM Sport doing their pit stop for the number 10 of Simon Butler, and it'll be Max Meyer to take charge of that to the flag.
Make it clear that was just a driver helper and not someone taking confession. Simon Butler there. Racing Reverend will be out of the car, off to administer his flock. Here comes Ronnie Valori. That gap is coming down a little, you know, to Jacopo Mazza. And the gap to Bernardo Pinheiro coming down as well. Under 3 seconds now to Mazza. That was closer to 4 when he made his initial move on the 48. What's happened here with the 4 car?
Ronnie Valori, he ran wide. Yeah. Just beyond the grasscrete, the painted concrete, and into the gravel trap. So that will have slowed him down a touch, and, well, has the element of doubt perhaps that it may weave its way into a puncture later on in the race. They don't change tyres during the pit stops. They'll check the pressures, certainly, And of course, if a tyre is down, then you can change it, but otherwise it's generally the same set for the second driver.
The question is whether or not they would do that with a 48 car if there is damage to that rear right tyre. By the way, we have a good long shot Louis Rossi's number 50 Ligier car, but here comes the 04 car. Ronnie Valori pushing on into the 226s, bettering the pace of the car now that's chasing him. It's not the car behind him that I believe will be the emerging 48 car. Back off pit lane with Stefan. Next car behind, so a lap and that distance for the pit stop from Stefan, and pit stop 2 minutes and 19 seconds on pit road for the Team Virage Championship leading car. Now in comes the 60, Bernardo Pinheiro will hand that car over to George King. Battle's underway here, Johnny, between the 11 and the Pegasus Racing 17, I think.
Yes, Anthony Nara. And in fact, these cars come in for their pit stops now. Yes, they have. So different drivers. Ray Yu Wang ahead of Dimitri Engelbert, but battle is resumed. When you compare to what happened in the earlier stint, and a good exit out of Le Com corner down towards Bruxelles for Dimitri Engelbert, will pick off Ray Yu Wang, and a tidy little overtake there, but Dimitri Engelbert is the silver in that combination. Meantime, there were cars leaving pit road, but I thought staying the correct side of the blend line. That was Thierry Colney in car 29, the all blue. Jacques Nicolet remains in pit lane. Another pit stoppers on this lap. Jacopo Mazza for LR Motorsport. Bernardo Pinheiro is in for Team Virage, so a lap later than Minea Stefan. And the smart driving car of Davide Amaduzzi to hand over to Dylan Young.
So 28 minutes and 20 seconds, and the 4 car comes through to complete the lap, and I'm sure will pit this time around. Followed through by the 48 car. Will unlap itself at that point. Is the 4 coming in?
Well, they left it very late earlier
have.
on, and they have pitted this time around, and no issues at all with the pit window message saying it is still open. It is now open, remaining on the screen. So 04 in, and Jacopo Mazza clambering out. Sorry, Ronnie Valori, I should say, clambering out of the number 4 car, and Jacopo Faccioni will be the new driver to the finish.
Also in Aguilera to hand over the number 75 RLR Sport JS P4 to Haytham Karajouli, last year's JS2 R champion, young man from Kuwait. And that was the incident that caused the damage to both of what were then the leading cars. 04, the change in driver, climb aboard. Also in, by the way, Team Virage's Kevin Madsen. So we are only waiting for the 43 car of LR Motorsport to complete our pit stops.
And that will be in the 43, Giacomo Polini to head in, and to be switched over to David Rodrigo.
He's heading down now towards the bus stop, and I'm sure will pit at the end of this lap. It's the battle. Who's the battling pair here? This is the 60 car ahead of the 48 again.
Yes. So Minea Stefan stays on board. He is the solo driver in the 48, but it's now George King in car 60 taking over from Bernardo Pinheiro. George off in the background there, Simone Riccitelli in the number 7 LR Motorsport car. Welcome to the race, Simone. Conditions significantly more different, no doubt, from that when you were in the car last time around, and that will have woken him up, but did well again to control the car through curve Paul Frere. George King slightly more ahead of Minea Stefan this time around, and Riccitelli looking to separate these two Team Virage cars as 04 is back on the move. The 04 combination silver-silver. So Ronnie Valori handing to Jacopo Faccioni, but they will have had to sit in the pit lane for the maximum amount of time.
Now this is going to be interesting. Just where does Faccioni come out? He's leaving the pits now. He's going to be in the lead here. He's on the Kemmel Straight now as they're coming down to Ligier, so he will lead the race.
Yeah.
And that's a mark of the pace that the 4 car. There is the 4. Look in the background as to where the gap is. If we get the longer shot there, just there, that is the lead gap. Well, in fact, at the moment, Lance Fenton leads the race. Because, of course he does, because they get a shorter pit stop, doesn't he?
That's right.
1 car is ahead of Jacopo Faccioni, but is being caught 3 seconds to the good. So of the top 4, 3 are Team Virage cars at the moment.
Ronnie Valori, who got out of the number 04 car, this is actually his first race in the Ligier European Series this year. He was a teammate to George King last year, but welcoming back Ronnie Valori for 2023, and Faccioni as a former champion. Meantime, the number 1 car is the race leader of Lance Fenton, who has done all sorts of racing through his career, including in the US in truck racing, pickup truck racing as we would know it in Europe, and some NASCAR stuff as well, but does have experience of this track with teammate Kevin Madsen in BMWs. Down the inside though, Jacopo Faccioni for the race lead, and Lance Fenton saw him coming. I don't think he was going to take an issue to that really, because they are running in different driver classifications. Lance Fenton, Kevin Madsen are the leaders in AM, and sealed the championship within that a little earlier in the season. So that's all done and dusted, and Lance Fenton certainly not wanting to hold up what at this stage is a quicker driver in Faccioni.
The JS2 R car leading the race is being held here. This is another look at the pass for the lead. Lance Fenton having taken the lead through the pit stops by dint of the fact it's a bronze, I think, isn't it, in the number 1 car?
Yes.
So they get a significant advantage on pit lane. That was eaten up in the laps that followed, and we're going to see a further positional change as the 60 goes through on the 1.
So that's George King, and all 3 Virage cars right together now. The stars and stripes of the American flag sitting in the middle of George King in the 60. So George now up to 2nd, Lance Fenton running 3rd, Ligier Stefan in 4th position. And Ligier Stefan looking for a way by, should be able to pick off Lance Fenton as they head onto the Kemmel Straight, and Lance sensibly gives Ligier, the Romanian driver, a little bit of room as they work their way onto this long straight. But Simone Riccitelli could yet have a say. Different team, remember. Lance Fenton getting out of the throttle to allow the young Italian through.
So dropping places, Lance Fenton. He will emerge from that in 5th place. Led the race on the previous lap. And immediately, by the way, with Faccioni, George King is on a tear here. Was that he going by? I think he was going by the leader.
Well, he's only a second behind through the last split, waiting for them now to trigger the beam at the end of Sector 2. Meanwhile, big drama elsewhere at LR Motorsport, because after a cracking stint from Giacomo Pollini to come in with the race lead in JS2R, now there's issues with the rear wing on the 43 car. They've done the driver change. I think everything else is ready to go. But here is Julien Lemoine now leading for ANS Motorsport. Obviously, the 43's got this sticky transponder, so we've got to remember that. But Lemoine...
It's a long pit stop for them. They've dropped from the front of the field to the back. It is a change. There is George King ahead. Now, it's a good first stint from George King, but he was then 2 seconds quicker in the middle sector. So Faccioni, I think, has had a moment.
Quite possibly.
Here comes Ligier Stefan. This could seal the championship here, you know.
And to the inside line, giving Faccioni no room whatsoever, but he had already the racing line, Ligier Stefan, and back up to 2nd place he will go. Late on the brakes, tries to go Simone Riccitelli to slither up the inside of Jacopo Faccioni, but couldn't find a way past there. And that was, is this where George King takes the race lead?
This is the race lead. But he'd caught him by a full second to get onto terms, and then 2 further seconds taken out of the leader, as has changed there. Faccioni drops a further place to Simone Riccitelli. This is 1, 2, 3, 4 in the race. Remember George King, after being just off form this morning.
Yes. And that will have frustrated him, certainly.
Yeah.
And, you know, he may well have gone away to have a word with himself, if you like, or just to try and drill down into the data to find out what was going wrong. I think these fully dry conditions will be helping, because we know George is a very, very quick driver, 23 years old, with his teammate Bernardo Pinheiro. And this is not a surprise to me now to see him performing much better than he did. Maybe he's just not a morning person.
Maybe that. Did have his frosties this morning.
Exactly.
Other sugar-fueled cereals are available, of course. 20 minutes to go. This race and 2 more at Portimao to complete this season. Will the 48 car, will Meneer Stefan need those 2 races to seal this title? As things stand at the moment, Johnny, the answer is no.
No, second place will be enough, even if George King and Bernardo Pinheiro win this race. Still scoring the 18 points for second position, Meneer Stefan, 25 for a race win, but the drop of 7 between those 2 spots is not enough for Meneer Stefan to miss out on grabbing the title with 2 races to spare. Up the inside, maybe he was thinking Dimitri Engelbert there on the number 5 smart driving car of Dylan Young.
7th place is the prize for winning this little battle. Dylan Young, good race this morning, came from the back of the grid after problems in qualifying to get the car into contention. So he's under pressure here from the highly experienced Engelbert. Clock ticking down, laps ticking down. So still battling hard.
Just wonder whether, we still haven't had the decision from the first race about whether there is a 2-minute penalty for the 0-4. That could well change things, and I'm wondering whether that will move Pinheiro and King up a position from race 1 today.
Okay.
And I'm just trying to work out, with a bit of on-the-fly maths, whether that is enough for Meneer Stefan not to get the title. I'll get back to you as Julien Lemoine now goes level with the 29 car of Thierry Colny, but they are not on the same lap. So although that's an overtake as such, it won't change the order. Julien Lemoine staying in front for ANS Motorsport.
So Julien Lemoine, by the way, is also leading his championship. Max Meyer now aboard the number 10 car, but he's got a big gap to fill. It's 1 minute and 24 seconds to make up to try to catch Lemoine, and that's not going to be easy.
Certainly not with the time left on the clock, which is only 17.5 minutes to go. As over the line will go car 5 for Dylan Young and Dimitri Engelbert. George King leading by a second ahead of Meneer Stefan in the 48. Simone Riccitelli in LR Motorsports number 7 car. And Team Virage, I'm sure, will be keeping Meneer Stefan up to date with how they think the points standings are panning out. His engineer knows them front to back and has been learning them all weekend, almost like a stage script. He every twist and turn that was possible to happen. I got the feeling that Meneer Stefan's engineer was on top of every single outcome.
Well, this is Max Meyer. He's the 2nd place car in JS2 R, and he is the traffic that the 2 battling JS P4s are looking to deal with as quickly and as efficiently as possible. Meyer, meanwhile, is trying to work that 83-second gap now to the race leader, with just under 17 minutes to go. Looks unlikely unless there's help coming from somewhere, dramas elsewhere. The bottlenecks being provided, though, by the RLR car is helping keep this JS P4 battle alive. At the moment, profit is going to the Pegasus Racing car in pursuit. That might change depending on whether or not he can clear Meyer. He can't clear him quickly enough. This is going to allow the car ahead, the smart driving car, to eke up more of a lead.
I've done my maths, and even if George King and Pinheiro inherit 3rd position from race 1, that's still not enough. It would be a gap of 57 points going to Portimao, and only 50 left on the table for Meneer Stefan.
Well, it's been a couple of years of dominance from Team Virage. Gillian Henrion. taking an absolutely dominant championship victory last year for the team. In fact, this was the race last year, the only one he didn't win.
Yeah.
And yet again, with a 3-car effort here, they've been in the mix and title secured by the look of things, looking to be heading towards the overall title again. And with the George King and Bernardo Pinheiro effort keeping them honest as well, this is a team that is investing in the talent that's coming up the order, and talented they are, because Guillaume Henrion is in a fine position in the Michelin Le Mans Cup, a drive that is paid for in no small part by the prize fund here in the Ligier European Series. And you're in the mood to get onto the international endurance racing ladder. There's very much worse places to try than here. Talking to a couple of teams in the paddock that I think will be joining the fun here next season. And others already announcing their intentions in both JS2 R and in JS P4. New British team announcing on social media that they're likely to join. And that was a touch, wasn't it? 17-5.
So Dimitri Enchelbert side by side with Dylan Young, and Enchelbert wanting to pull across the nose of the Australian, thinking he was clear, he wasn't quite, and that's taken some of the race number on the side of car 5 with it as well. So now a more untidy look, but that required Dylan Young getting out of the throttle to avoid any further contact, and Dimitri Enchelbert thought he was clear, and he absolutely was not.
No, so that was a moment that could have had real drama. Both drivers kept it on the island. The battle is restored. That is going to be looked at, though, by race control. Here's the 43 car. Now, how long was he on pit road? Well, it's still not shown how long he was on pit road.
I think that's linked to the transponder
I think you're
issue.
absolutely right.
So
fell back from what was a dominant lead to 4th, and now under pressure. Whereas this is not passive position, is it? This is to unlap. It's the 42 car. This is the race leader, in fact, and the previous race leader side by side, looking to put another lap on the troubled LR Motorsport car. A&S Motorsport's Julien Lemoyne goes up the inside here through the gravel zone. And here is a battle for second place, by the way. Riccitelli looking for the outside pass on Miner Stefan. Couldn't quite do it there, but this is not done yet, is it? 12.5 minutes to go. And still...
Oh, Miner Stefan a bit too deep, maybe into Bruxelles, and there's maybe a car width there, but Riccitelli would have to force the issue and decides, I'll stick behind him for the time being. But Miner Stefan is slowly starting to get a bit rattled here by Simone Riccitelli's mere attendance just off the rear bumper.
Absolutely doesn't want any real drama at this stage. Just needs to keep it on the island, just needs to keep the tally of points that he's got. Will want to defend. Does dropping to 3rd make it have an effect here, Johnny? I don't think it does.
That's the question now.
More maths.
I know. I need an abacus in front of me here, because if Miner Stefan drops back, he would lose a further, was it 3 points compared to the previous points that I'd just done. Running in second place at the moment. Briefly, interestingly, Simone Riccitelli was shown ahead through the previous split, but Miner Stefan has got back in front. 3 cars, 2 of which they should catch, because the JS2 R's in the distance there. So to the high side, Miner Stefan, that was risky around the outside of David Rodrigo's car.
But it's given him a gap, is the key. That was what that was about, is getting rid of the challenge. He's done that for the moment and gives himself a clearer run into another danger area here at the bus stop. But Riccitelli's definitely got the quicker car, because he's right back with him. Here's that move again, around the outside of the 43 car. High risk move, ducks in, clears the car. Does it again with the 42. It's a warning flag for car 17 for that contact with car 5. So that's as bad as it gets at the moment for the Pegasus racing car. Better run through La Source and on the run down to a Rouge from Miner Stefan. But what speed has Riccitelli got when we get to the wide open Kimmel Straight?
would only be a difference of 3 points. So as I said, it would be 57 if we stay as we are, 54 therefore if Riccitelli got in front, and still that's plenty. I say plenty, it's 4 more than he needs.
And crucially, Faccioni, who's next down the road, is a further 12 seconds back, and we've got just 10 minutes left. So at the moment, unless there's real drama, it does look, doesn't it, as if Manair Stefan is heading towards the title, whether or not he retains this second place.
Yeah, he would love to do that, but then again, if Simone Riccitelli is so revved up and almost risking contact, then Manair Stefan might be wiser to step aside rather than risk leaving the road in some contacts. Simone Riccitelli, unfortunately for him, already has a blot on the copybook from earlier on today when he ran into the side of Dimitri Engelbert at Bruxelles corner in the opening stint of race 1 today.
Looking racy here though, Riccitelli, isn't he? Looking very racy indeed. And what do you do in this situation if you're the championship leader? Position, second or third, is not an issue if you're looking to secure the championship. Contact at this point could be disastrous.
So being aware of the LR Motorsports whereabouts, Manair Stefan keeping the pace up as much as possible, but he has got a stricken car because of that rear bumper damage done fairly early on after contact with Ronnie Valori on the Kemmel Straight. Here comes Simone Riccitelli, slightly tighter exit out of that kink into the bus stop, but couldn't get the car positioning he needed. Big blast to the throttle there between turns 18 and 19. Glorious sound from the Ford-based engine, and back across the line they go.
Yep, starts on lap 21. 5.5 seconds clear, by the way, George King. He's up the inside this time, and he makes it. I think Stefan just ducked out of that one, didn't want to risk the contact. It was a brave move from the Italian, but for me, Johnny, I think Stefan knew the move was coming somewhere and had probably made the decision, if he comes and it's reasonably clean, I'm going to let him go.
Yeah, and I think that's heads-up driving from Manair Stefan, who has been racing now for a good 15 years or so, and he's drawing alongside.
He's got him back. He's got him back here.
Riccitelli, not quite as quick coming out of the corner, although on the gravel now, so not the tightest line from the 48 car, and Riccitelli will take him back again. Superb racing, and it's high-risk stuff as well for Manair Stefan, because he's very much thinking about the championship as well as this one race in isolation.
Well. 7.5 minutes remain, and 3 passes for position between these two in 5 corners. This is the first move up the inside, slightly locked up there. I think Stefan did let that one go. I think he knew the only other option was going to be significant contact, but got a great run up and over Eau Rouge and Radion, catapulted himself by almost side-by-side contact, did just enough there, but went in just a tiny bit too deep, and that was no further invitation needed. Through goes Simone Riccitelli in the number 7 LR Motorsport car, and he's up into second place again and pulling away now.
So the situation in the points changes very slightly, but even if they finish in this order now, with Manair Stefan down to third, when you compare to the race winners or race leaders, George King and Bernardo Pinheiro, it's only a difference of 3 fewer points, and still he should have enough in hand. I did want to check how the points will look for Riccitelli and Mazza, but because they finished 7th in the first race, that's really taken them out of contention earlier this morning.
And it wouldn't be Riccitelli, would it? Because he missed the last race meeting. It was Mazza.
Fine, okay.
I don't think Riccitelli did Aragon.
Yeah. Well,
battle
regardless,
here.
we look at the highest point scorers of the driver combination for LR Motorsport, effectively. But yes, battle here, and this is Dimitri Engelbert scrapping away with the number 5 and Madsen as well.
Apologies, Lance Fenton now. Haytham Caragiuli is head of this pair, but that is Engelbert through into 6th place.
Yes.
And it's going to be a second position lost here, because through goes the number 5 car, Dylan Young. So shuffling back at the moment, the number 1 car, and class car as Michelin Stefan has a bit of a gravelly moment there, and that will not do his battle for second any good. But he, at the moment, Johnny, is under 6 minutes away from the title.
So again, a slight rise in the heartbeat for the Romanian driver, I'm sure, as he just dropped a Michelin tyre or two into the gravel trap, and that's something to be wary of in the closing stages. He's still pushing like crazy to keep with the LR car of Riccitelli, now running in second position. Yeah,
Lance Fenton drops another place to Steve Zacchia. And ahead of this group, by the way, there's a battle underway for fourth. Jacopo Faccioni is dropping back and has been caught now by Haytham Caragiuli in the 75 RLRM Sport car, and indeed has passed him. This is the pass. You can see on the Kemmel Straight, young Kuwaiti up the inside into the braking zone, looking for the clean line through. The gravel takes it beautifully, and he's got enough of a car underneath him to make that very clean indeed. More battling side by side in the later group, and this is the final pass of that group, and that will be Steve Zacchia in the Le Desarbe number 50 car going through on the number 1 Team Virage car of Lance Fenton. He drops to 9th.
George King leading by 5.3 seconds in this number 60 car, and a much more convincing performance from the 23-year-old from the southeast of England this time around, heading into the chicane at the end of lap 22. So far, no reason to hamper the progress of the race, unlike earlier on today. So we are now going to match the race distance from race 1 here at Spa, and on to lap 23. 2 more perhaps at the end of this hour-long race, and George King could yet extend further, although a revved up Simone Riccitelli trying to hunt him down. If all things stay equal, that's going to be too large a gap to condense in the time that remains, but a much better performance from both in the number 7 car this time for Riccitelli the second stint, Jacopo Mazza, the Swiss driver, in the opening stint. They completed in 7th position earlier today, but looking like it's going to be a strong podium result for the second race.
Ray Yu Wang actually now catching Lance Fenton. He seems to be struggling at this point in the race. His pace is dropping off quite dramatically. Whether or not that's a car problem or whether Lance is feeling it. Been a long day. Been warm in that car now as well in the sunshine here. These 3 cars, though, they're not done with their battle, are they?
No way.
This is great stuff. This is Pegasus Racing's Dimension Gilbert, Dylan Young for smart driving, and Steve Zacchia, all experienced racers. There's the change in JS P4. There's a big move to defend there from the Le Desarbe car, but goes to the outside. He's going to try to do it around that way. There's a hip check as well there too. So the 50 of Dylan Young and the 5 of Dylan Young and the 50 of Steve Zacchia. Real dramas there between the two. Steve Zacchia, plenty of experience here at Spa, including Steve, sadly, has the example that we always quote about how good things never happen in warm-up. Destroying the pole-setting Celine for the Spa 24 Hours some years ago up at Radion, but he's now taken that position.
Yeah.
So he learned something that year.
Having gone through Radion superbly well and getting a much better run on Dylan Young, the Australian driver. So the 41-year-old from Switzerland, still silver rated.
Yeah, and Dylan Young there along the pit straight, the main pit straight, and into La Source, maybe a little too aggressive in his defence.
I've also got Steve down as, I think, one of the first Le Mans Series champions with Labra competition.
It was in that same Celine.
Was that the same car?
Yes,
so
it was.
GTS category.
Correct.
I've got it down as a Ferrari 550.
Oh.
So we'll have to check the record books there. But
he certainly drove both.
Yeah. And they did come to Spa in 2004, that particular year. So Steve, with a long history in ACO rules racing, this is actually his 3rd year on the trot in the Ligier European Series as well. Final lap for George King.
Yeah, huge experience in Zacchia, but this has been a very controlled race indeed from George King. Put the pressure on. There is Riccitelli in the background, and where is Michelin Stefan? He's dropped right back, further 5 seconds back. A much, much better race from George King. Bernardo Pinheiro applied the pressure. George King got aboard that car and got the business done. That is Haytham Caragiuli ahead of the 4 car now in his 4th place.
5 seconds to be added at the end of the race to the smart driving Dylan Young driven car for contact with Steve Zackia's machine. For Le Dusab as now the 04 takes a look up the inside of Haytham Caragiuli. Caragiuli, though, charging hard into Le Com corner, does fend off the advantage of Jacopo Faccioni. That is the fight for 4th and 5th, with the Kuwaiti driver staying in 4th. With that all-carbon nose, which is not the normal paint scheme for RLRM Sport, but they've had quite a bit of repair work to do for that car for race day, after some damage yesterday in qualifying.
So this is our race leader heading towards victory, coming now through turn 14 and 15, campus corner and past the karting track to the right on the inside of the circuit. And it's the fast run down to the bus stop. He's got a 5-second gap to a charging Simone Riccitelli, and a further 5 seconds, 6 seconds now to Minea Stefan. So it's going to be quite the afternoon here for Team Virage, Johnny. A race win for this car and a title for the number 48.
An excellent drive from Bernardo Pinheiro and George King. This will be their first win of the season, in fact, in car number 60. So well done to Bernardo and George, who come home with the victory. Second place to Simone Riccitelli and his teammate Jacopo Mazza, but in the background, Minea Stefan, at least provisionally, doing enough in this race to score 3rd place points, 15 to the total, and now an unassailable lead, I make it, because there will only be, well, potentially 54 points, depending on the result from race 1, even if that is adjusted to change things around and change the 2nd place finishers. Still not enough. 54 points they will need, and there's only 50 available in Portimao in 4 weeks' time. So Minea Stefan becomes the 2023 champion in JS P4 for the Ligier European Series. And here is Julien Lemoine, surely on course for a championship as well.
I think so too. 42 car of Julien Lemoine comes through in the ANS Motorsport car ahead of him. Jacques Nicolet finishes on the podium. But here comes the 42 car in JS2R. Julien Lemoine a minute ahead of Max Meyer, who, by the way, closed 24 seconds on that lead in his stint. Absolutely excellent stuff from him. But it's congratulations from the Team Virage team to Minea Stefan for his titles to be formally confirmed. And what about Lemoine?
Lemoine began the weekend on 136 points. That was only 9 over David Rodrigo, but Rodrigo losing points in that race as well.
Don't think it's going to be done.
I think it's still quite close. I couldn't do the maths on both championships all at the same time, but I will try and top them up depending on how much time we've got at the end of this broadcast. It's a really tight schedule, though, here at Spa-Francorchamps this weekend, with ELMS qualifying very shortly starting.
What's not going to help Rodrigo's push for the title, by the way, is investigation after the flag for what abusing track limits after the warning flag. So he might well get a penalty. Dramas galore in that one, Johnny.
Yeah, and we have a new champion, assuming everything is kosher with the car at the end of the race. Of course, it will have to pass post-scrutineering race checks. But Minea Stefan, a dominant performance, a trying race, actually, for the Romanian last time there. This morning went well, this time a bit iffy, but we have a new champion for 2023. And here are the results. First win of the season for Bernardo Pinheiro and George King after 24 laps. They win by 3.7 seconds.
Allez, on va pouvoir y aller avec cette cérémonie protocolaire de la Ligier European Series course 2. On va attaquer avec JS P4, JS P4 overall. Troisième place hors place, car 48, Ligier Stéphane. On y va. Yeah, soyez pas bien, please. Yeah, thank you. Deuxième place, second place for AR Motorsport, Simone Riccitelli et Jacopo Mazza. Et le vainqueur de cette deuxième course de la journée de ce meeting de Spa-Francorchamps, à la Tube 60 du team Virage, George King et Bernardo Pinero. On peut les applaudir. Congratulations, guys. Et à l'honneur du team Virage, vainqueur de cette course, nous allons côté l'hymne national polonais. And now, guys, if you can take the trophies for the official pictures. And we have the team representative of Team Garage as well, joining around the podium. If you can take the pictures, yeah, here's the trophies, smiling, cheers, guys. And now, yes, we can take the champagne! Fantastic race. Congratulations, guys. Félicitations. N'oubliez pas votre trophée, votre bouteille de champagne. Les vainqueurs en catégorie Pro-Am du JSP4, la numéro 50 des deux arbres, Louis Rossi et Steve Zacchia. Félicitations, messieurs. Vous pouvez prendre notre feu pour la photo. Représentant nos deux arbres, allez. Voilà. La photo officielle. Et si vous le souhaitez, eh bien, champagne! Non, pas de champagne? Ah là là. pouvoir enchaîner avec le vainqueur de la catégorie ELMS en JS P4. Une nouvelle fois, le Team Virage number 1, Lance Fenton and Kevin Madsen. Congratulations, guys. The pictures with the trophies, please, yeah. And if you want to celebrate, you can have some champagne! Alright, ok. Allez, on va pouvoir enchaîner avec le classement overall JS2 R. The overall classification for the JS2 R. Troisième place, third place, car 86, 86. Les deux arbres, Jacques, Nicolet. Bravo, Jacques. Second place, deuxième place pour le RRM Sport, Max Meyer and Simon Butler. Et le vainqueur, the winner, pour la deuxième fois de la journée. On peut l'applaudir lui aussi, numéro 42 pour le ELMS Motorsport, Julien Le Mans. Bravo Julien. Et en l'honneur des vainqueurs, team et pilotes, nous allons pouvoir écouter l'hymne national français, la Marseillaise. La voiture 42, l'ELMS Motorsport, Julien Lemoine, vainqueur de ces JS2 R. Messieurs, si vous pouvez prendre les trophées. The trophies first for the official pictures. Voilà, voilà. Les photos officielles de cette deuxième course. Et si vous le souhaitez, maintenant, c'est l'heure du champagne, champagne. Camarades qui sont noyés. Félicitations, congratulations. continue. The winners in the Pro-Am category, they were on the podium. Car number 10, ELMS Sport, Max Meyer and Simon Butler. Congratulations again, on peut les applaudir. The official pictures with the trophies, guys. Simon est pressé de faire exploser la bouteille de champagne. Champagne! Fantastique. Right. Allez. Il va être temps déjà du dernier podium de ce rendez-vous de Spa-Francorchamps pour la Ligier European Series. Le vainqueur en catégorie AM, il a été également le vainqueur général. On peut à nouveau l'applaudir. 42 Hans Motorsport, Monsieur Julien Lemoine. Félicitations Julien. Ah, la photo officielle tout d'abord avec le trophée, notre ami photographe. Julien n'a pas envie, il est comblé par le champagne. Allez, c'est parti, félicitations. Merci à toutes et tous pour ces deux courses ici à Spa-Francorchamps. Et on dit d'ici quelques semaines à Portimao pour la finale de la Ligier European Series 2023. Merci.